Next, we've got the LA Bowl. Washington takes on Boise State. Final score 38-10. This was a rough one for Boise State. They had 28 carries in this game for 58 yards. Boise State will never win a football game, at least with this roster and this coaching staff, doing that. When you average 2.1 yards per carry, you're not winning a football game with that team. Much less if you throw five interceptions, you're absolutely not winning the game or keeping it close. And that's what happened here. Boise State just continued to get behind the chains on this game. They actually were talent wise, they weren't too far off from Washington. It wasn't a huge drop off. Like if you just saw the score and you saw the quarterback interceptions from Boise State, which they played two quarterbacks, and then the 58 rushing yards, you would think this was just a complete slaughtering. Which on paper, yes, it is. But I mean, total yards, they weren't too far off. I thought that defensively, Boise State didn't play terrible. They didn't have any like massive coverage busts. I think they had one deep touchdown they gave up, but they held Washington in check for the most part. They didn't run all over them or throw all over them. I mean, Demond Williams only had 215 passing in this game. He did throw four touchdowns, but they got like five sacks on Demond Williams, which he's a very hard guy to get down in the backfield. He's one of the most elusive quarterbacks in the entire country. So they were able to get pressure on him. They still lost by 28 points. So not a great showing for Boise State as they moved to the Pac-12.
Yeah, I mean, it really just came down to Madsen. Oftentimes, when he's kind of forced to throw it more, when that's like what the offense has to rely on, like in this game, only having 60 rush yards, that's putting a lot of pressure on him. And times that he's had to perform under those conditions, he has not done very good. And this, of course, no exception. 7 for 16, 51 yards, two interceptions, and then getting benched.
That's what he looked like in the USF game in week one. And I figured if we got that version of him the rest of the season, they weren't going to be any good at all. But they had like four different running backs that they could plug and play that were actually all really solid. They ran the ball on most of the teams in the Mountain West pretty easily. Their only real like mess ups were the Fresno State game. They didn't play very well. I think they lost to another team that was around their same record, but it was pretty close. And then the USF game, obviously they lost that one. They
They lost to San Diego State.
they have one of the best defenses in college football. So as long as they stopped the run, they were going to be able to have a real good chance to beat Boise State, and they did. I think Boise State's got to be preparing for their move to the Pac-12. They have probably the biggest brand out of most of those teams, and they could end up being one of the leaders in that conference for a long time if it stays together. I hope that they can resurrect that conference. That would be great. They may not be able to, but Boise State's going to need to be the figurehead of that conference if they want that to be the case. I would think Boise State and Washington State. I don't know that Oregon State will be able to bounce back necessarily, but I think that those two programs need to be the face of the conference if they're going to do anything special. See if they factor that into the playoff too. I don't know if next year they'll acknowledge them as a Power Five conference again, or if they'll still be considered a Group of Five conference. I don't know how that works. So we'll see going in next year, but there's a lot of teams moving over, and they'll actually have a legitimate conference this year. It won't just be Washington State and Oregon State squaring off twice in the same season again.
What are the teams that are going to be in there?
No, Texas State, I think, is moving to the Pac-12. Um,
Yeah.
Fresno should be moving to the Pac-12. I might pull up a list just so I don't completely butcher this, but
Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, Gonzaga for basketball, Oregon State, San Diego State, Texas State, Utah State, Washington State.
I don't hate that. I think there's a couple other teams they probably could have put in. You didn't say San Diego State, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, they're in there. That's a good one. I think they probably should have been in there a while ago. I really think they should relegate Cal and Stanford back into the Pac-12. I think that would make sense. Like Wake Forest is a team that probably shouldn't even be in the ACC anyway. So if they really don't care about demographics, like I said, demographics. If they don't care about location, they shouldn't move teams like Wake Forest over to the Pac-12. I think they would fit in pretty well.
Yeah, those teams would just fight tooth and nail to not let that happen though, because they'd lose so much money.
They would lose a lot of money, and they would probably
But they,
spend even more traveling because Wake Forest is way up there in North Carolina, trying to get anywhere across into.
I just meant dropping them down to Group of Five altogether.
Well, yeah, I mean for sure, but the travel expenses would be
If they were in the
crazy.
Pac-12, yeah.
They probably travel more than any team in the entire country. So yeah, I think that Boise State's got a bright future in the Pac-12. Obviously, Washington being an ex Pac-12 team that kind of carried the load several of the last couple seasons as one of the figureheads. Um, Beating them this badly was not a great look for Boise State as they try to, take that next step. But I think they'll be able to recruit better than most of the other teams in the conference. I think they'll be probably one of the first teams to take a big step.
They'll definitely improve from this year. I mean, this was probably one of their worst years in recent memory, and they still won their conference.
Yeah, they still are probably going to end up being one of the best teams in their conference next year. So exciting stuff. First bowl game of the year was not close, but we did see some really exciting plays from Washington. Damon Williams finished his sophomore campaign with over 3,000 passing yards on the season. I just want to read his stats as we kind of get into our next segment. He had 3,676 total yards, 31 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions on the season. On a 9-win football team, that's pretty good considering where we're at this year with statistics and quarterbacks. He had a really good season. Very, very slept on player. We talked about this last year after they beat Louisville. Um, he's one of the most slept on quarterbacks in all of college football. I think that his team, being the team that it is right now, has a lot to do with the fact that he's not getting a lot of talk. But going into next year, if Washington can piece some different position groups together, they're going to be trouble again. If they were just a little bit off from Ohio State and Michigan this year, I think that next year there's a chance they can start closing that gap. With Michigan starting to go down the gutter right now, which we got to talk about that in a minute. I think that gives room for another team to maybe step up like USC or Washington in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought there was a chance that Washington would break out this year, but if they can retain most of their guys and having Demond Williams back, maybe just a year late they'll do that.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I like Washington a lot right now. Jed Fish has them in a really good spot.